Welcome to Shannons Club TV, the program for all motoring enthusiasts to relive classic Australian road and race histories. In each episode, we explore some of the factors that made our feature car stand out and get the latest Shannons auctions news.
In today's episode, we also have a rare opportunity to see an owner's road-going tribute to race legend Jim Richards. Right now though, let's take a look at the coupe that became the hero car for BMW's attack on the Australian prestige market, the BMW 6 Series.
Even if it was slightly bigger than the Australian Tirana GTR XU1, the 1976 BMW E24 6 Series Coupe was surprisingly close in concept and profile to Holden's Aussie Hot Rod. Both featured an edgy inline six of similar size, tightly wrapped in a centre pillar four-seater semi-coupe body. The 6 Series marked a new design direction for a BMW coupe with its fuller and more aggressive profile, hot on the heels of the first 3 Series. Former Mercedes-Benz designer Paul Brach, under the leadership of ex-GM suit Bob Lutz, added European class to the 1968 to 1969 Mustang hardtops shark nose 3-box proportions. It was very similar to Holden's transformation of the HB Viva into the LC Tirana GTR. Not every coupe from Japan and Europe, including BMW's Mercedes-Benz rival, ended up as a serious Bathurst contender. Mark, what was different about the BMW 6 Series?
Well, one big factor was the fact that BMW Australia backed it. They backed it to the hilt. And even though the car wasn't successful in its first few years, that was largely due to the regulations at the time, it was a very, very successful marketing exercise, because by running the 6 Series, which is very closely related to the 5 Series and the 7 Series sedans, it really opened up buyers' eyes that there was a big car alternative to what Mercedes-Benz was offering at the time.
Well, it was fairly critical because it was actually known as the big BMW when it really wasn't.
And they always referred to it as that, didn't they?
But it was promoting the big BMW, the 7 Series, and the first time that BMW really contended in that segment. And again, like the Tirana, the 6 Series was much smaller than the big BMW coupe label often used. It was similar in size to a VK Commodore Group A, but 200 kilograms heavier. Cutting this weight back on later cars changed the performance equation, but the balance of the 6 Series remained sensitive to engine weight. BMW's constant injection of new technology allowed the 6 Series to stay on top of its game, on and off the track. New engines, powerful new fuel injection systems, several new transmissions, and new suspension developments reshaped what was under the skin, with surprisingly few visual changes over its long model life. Although sales tapered off at the very end, the E24 6 Series posted best ever figures in the mid-1980s, reflecting its ever-growing profile on the racetrack. The arrival of the M635 CSI and new unleaded versions for emissions markets like Australia also kick-started new interest. And despite a gap in local deliveries from 1981 to 1986, a rush of private imports filled the gap while it went missing. It doesn't take much to explain such local enthusiasm that's not always extended to European models. Strip away the BMW badges and European engineering, and the formula is not too far removed from a string of icon Aussie 6-cylinder models. Mark, the BMW 6 Series became an increasingly potent force in 1980s touring car racing.
Yeah, and it was those gorgeous black and gold JPS factory cars that led the charge. During the 1980s, the world-famous black and gold colours of John Player Special joined forces with BMW Australia and its 6-cylinder 635 CSI Coupe to create their own brand of international sophistication and excitement. For all its European glamour though, JPS Team BMW was just as homegrown and authentically Australian as any of the local teams it competed against. Under experienced team boss Frank Gardner, the cars were built locally using the best components and engineering resources available in Australia and Germany. The JPS cars were never far from controversy though, from the moment Alan Grice debuted the German coupe at Sydney's Amaroo Park in 1981, in a touring car series which raised its engine limit from 3 litres to 3.5 litres just to allow the German coupe to compete. The howl of its fuel-injected 6 was matched only by the howls of protest from rival 3-litre competitors. Joe, Australia had never seen anything like those JPS factory cars. You know, they looked stunning, they sounded fantastic. It must have really provided a huge spike on local buyer interest in the BMW brand.
It certainly did, because there already was a JPS heritage. We saw it on Lotus and the Formula One cars. And it was just perfect for BMW, because for the first time they were pitching big 7 Series against the top flight Mercedes-Benz. And this 6 Series Coupe was representing that. It was a very interesting exercise.
The absence of a single outright victory during the JPS BMW 635's 4 years of competition, from 1981 to 1984, was a reflection of the car's unsuitability to Australia's unique Group C touring car rules. When Jim Richards replaced Alan Grice as lead driver in 1982, JPS BMW was on a hiding to nothing due to crippling weight penalties. Gradual weight reductions and approval to use the exotic M1 model's 24-valve dual overhead cam cylinder head in 1983 gave the 635 the performance boost it needed, but that also created a chronic handling imbalance that could not be cured under Group C rules. BMW Australia's faith in the JPS program was finally rewarded in 1985, when Australia switched from Group C to international Group A rules, which seemed tailor-made for the 635. With the brilliant Kiwi Jim Richards at the helm, it blitzed the Australian Touring Car Championship and the Australian Endurance Championship with a level of dominance that will never be forgotten.
And remember, you can read the full road and race histories on the Shannons Club website.
Hello, I'm Phil Nash. This car is a 1984 BMW 635 CSI. So as you can see, it's a tribute car from the Bathurst era of the mid-80s. There were 4 key drivers. There was Prince Leopold, Denny Hulme, Tony Longhurst and Jim Richards. I've had this car for a year, but I've known of this car for 15 years. A fellow Alfa Romeo club owner restored this car. It was his daily driver. He took the car apart. He bought an Alpina B7 Rec and used parts from the Alpina B7 Rec to rebuild this car. When this car became available, I was very keen to acquire it, because I was a uni student back in the mid-80s when the racing version of this car was going around Bathurst. For me, it's just one of those key cars which I've always desired. I've been with Shannons now for 25 years, and initially it was 1 old car, now it's 11 old cars. Shannons are car people. They get the car paradigm. They know that you're an enthusiast, that you're not going to be thrashing these cars around, that you're more than likely going to have it in the garage and be polishing it very carefully. In the previous ownership, the BMW dealership had the car on display there under a big JPS banner, and Jim Richards came to the dealership, saw the car, and very much appreciated that someone had taken the time and effort, passion and enthusiasm to replicate quite closely a road-going version of his Bathurst car. So he signed the steering wheel, and he's also signed under the bonnet. So for that I'm very appreciative as well. He's a lovely man and a great figure of Australian motorsport.
Well, Shannons National Auctions Manager Chris Borrabon joins us. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Chris. BMW 6 Series. It was sold here officially from very early days till 1981. It went missing for 5 years, came back in mid-1986 as an unleaded car. And there's this great mass of 6 Series that have come from all over the place, all over the world, to fill in that gap, 5-year gap. How do we make sense of this?
Look, I think even he's good. You confused me now. Look, I think they've always been a popular car. We saw their popularity in the 80s. Again, we saw that popularity go through the 90s, and I think they're really a practical modern classic. We see them used as a weekender through to a daily driver still. So, great car.
So I guess the Australian delivered cars are always going to be a little bit sought after. But if you're buying in that middle period from 81 to 86, a little bit of buyer beware?
Yeah, I think you really got to get the cars inspected and have a really good look at them. I mean, if they're a recent import or car that's come from the UK, yeah, it's probably best to get checked over from corrosion point of view.
Well, they seem to come in from a lot of right-hand drive markets, Hong Kong,
yeah, Hong
Japan.
Kong, Japan. That's right. Yeah.
Chris, the 6 Series is a practical classic today. I mean, a lot of people think of European cars, huge prices for spare parts. I mean, what's the 6 Series like?
Look, generally a very reliable car. I mean, given that it shared, mechanical components of many of the models that we receive here in Australia, so parts availability is still there.
And quite affordable.
Quite affordable. But they're quite reliable classics, and great to drive.
And I guess the thing that we mustn't forget is that they had a brilliant racing history, very high profile, and brought the focus right back to these cars in the early 80s.
Yep.
And I think it's fair to say that they won't be forgotten.
Absolutely not. I mean, who can forget the black 6 Series with the JPS livery on it? It was one of those things that we grew up with and loved. So, and I think that really did, bring that focus back into the cars, and I think that's probably why we've got such a good following today for the cars.
Well, thanks for joining us, Chris. Keep in mind you can keep up to date with all the latest Shannons Auctions news at the Shannons Club website. Joe, when you look back at the 6 Series, it's a car that really changed perceptions of the BMW brand in Australia, wasn't it?
Well, if you look at before that car arrived on the racetrack, BMW was somewhere around Audi and Mercedes was right out there.
Yeah.
When that car finished, BMW was level with Mercedes-Benz, just in time too, because Lexus was just round the corner and it took up the place where BMW was. And it was rapidly on its back.
It was a very good example of using motor racing as a marketing exercise.
Absolutely, very, very, very effective. We hope you've enjoyed reliving the history of the BMW 6 Series, and we'll catch you next time on Shannons Club TV.